Hello, world changers! Welcome back to another amazing podcast. I'm super excited about today's podcast. We have a very special guest. I'm going to let him introduce himself, and then we're kind of going to go on to what today's podcast is about. So,
hello, everyone. My name's Logan. I'm 24 years old and only known Ping for about 5 months or so. So it's kind of, but it was also kind of like an immediate type of friendship. We became super close friends, and once she asked me to do this, I was like, heck yeah! Whenever you need me, I'm here.
Yes, exactly. And I have people that I asked to come on, but that might be a little flaky, and so I always have a solid backup. And today, Logan was supposed to be on next week, but I needed a backup today. So luckily, we have a friend we can rely on. So thank you, Logan, for being here. Super excited. Today's podcast is podcast number 6, and that is crazy that I've done 6 so far. And so many more to go. We have so many more people that have been reaching out to us asking to be on the show and coming to me with their topics, and that is amazing. So when Logan and I were discussing what we wanted to have our topic be today, it was fighting the hardest battles, the easy battles, all the battles that we fight in our life from a young age to where we are now, which is a little bit older, but still extremely young. People always say we're old. I'm like, we are, but still younger than 30, and that's good. So yeah, we're kind of going to jump into it. Basically, it's going to be like every other podcast that we've done, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So yeah, when I think of like fighting battles, the things that come to my mind first are the hard battles. The battles of grief, the battles of depression, the battles of, even things that people will look at as something that's really something not a huge deal, like if you took a test and you failed it. To some people would be like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, but to somebody that's working on their future and, you hit that failure hits you, it can be really devastating. And that's like, I know how I've fought my battles over the years, but I haven't always won them. And no. It's definitely... What are some examples of battles that you've had? Whether it's, whatever.
Well, because we're going to kind of talk about some of this later, so I'll kind of go with the simple one. So, like, when I was in high school, I was diagnosed with ADHD, which everyone knows, attention deficit disorder. Mm-hmm. And so when they diagnosed me at that, they were like, all right, we can try to help you out with some things. Mind you, I was going to a public school, so they had to do what the best they could. So 7th grade, after failing 3-4 classes, went to the counselor's office, said, all right, you're obviously going to have to look at summer school. You're going to have to look at doing online classes just to help catch up. Mm-hmm. And they're like, what we can do to try to help you, especially with tests for the future classes, is like you can come into our conference room, which they had, just take it privately. And I did that for literally about a week because I just thought, this isn't the way how I need to do it. Mind you, high school, I was having to catch up all year because with everything going on, and obviously we'll talk about some of this later, I was failing. I barely passed 9th or 12th grade a few times, and a lot of that, like she was saying, especially with tests or even simple school, like, you have to try to, like, exceed your parents' expectations. Like, they're always saying, oh, you want to graduate high school, then go to college, get a good job, and I think that's...
the classic speech.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and I think that's one of the hardest battles, and I even think, and I know although people who succeed say, oh, I never experienced that type of battle, I think everyone does. Everyone who goes through school experiences that, even if they silence it.
100%. For me, it was I've never been diagnosed with ADHD. Every person I meet they always are like, oh, do you have Adderall? Because you have ADHD. I'm like, no, I've never been diagnosed. I just know that I got a lot of things going on in my brain, basically. And through school, for me, I'm more academically, I didn't struggle. I more socially struggled.
No.
The bullying and like, it was rough. School was just rough.
Oh yeah, no. So for me, so for everyone, I do deal with a lot of medical issues. I don't know if I said when I introduced myself, I'm only 24. By the age of 21, I had 26 major surgeries.
Holy shit.
So I was dealing with a lot of medical issues. So I was missing school a lot. Like, during the worst of it, I was probably having to see doctors down in Rochester, which is about...
Like the Mayo Clinic area?
Yeah, which is about 3 hours from here. But mind you, I lived a little up north of Duluth, when I was going to high school, so that was about 4.5 hour drive. And so I was doing that once a month.
Oh.
And so I was missing a lot of school, and like, unfortunately, it was easier because when I was in elementary school, I went to a private religious school, so it was a little bit easier because it was not as many kids, it was not as many, so it was easier for teachers to help you out and be able, but
aim towards your needs.
But once I entered high school, that completely flipped. Like, of course, the like principals and teachers try to be understanding, but mind you, when they're teaching not just 15 kids in your grade, they're teaching
hundreds.
I was gonna say my 7th grade year we had about 100 kids, which changed from my 5th grade year at the elementary school to about 20 kids in my grade. So it was just like a complete flip flop. And where were we? Oh, I know. I lost my train of thought. So going to a public school, a lot of kids may just look at, oh, you're dealing with all this, but they might be looking at you weird. They might be looking at you like a freak and and so I dealt with a lot of emotional bullying, a lot of mental bullying, even sometimes physical bullying, and and the thing that sucks about it is a lot of kids there were some kids I knew from the elementary religious school that I went to, and I thought they were my friends, but then they would do it to me in public school. Luckily, since changing my life, I tried talking to a lot of them. They have apologized for it. They have, like the friends from the elementary school that bullied me in high school, said, you know what, dude, I'm sorry. I know you're going through a lot. Never should have, done that to you. And so, luckily, in my life, some of those friends at least apologize for it, but there's a lot of that toll that's like, we're friends, but I'm keeping my at an arm's distance from you.
I'm not gonna try. That is a lot to go through. Holy cow. I mean, not only going through transitioning schools, but also going to the hospital like that. That is really tough. And it's I'm glad that one, that you decided to come today, because everybody normally bails. And two, I'm glad that we're able to, one, I get to know so much more about you.
Yeah.
And, we actually met at youth group, and that was an overall amazing experience, and we can maybe share about it later if we have some time. But it was definitely, you never know who you're going to meet in those experiences. You never know. That's why I say a lot of people that are like, what do I do with my life? Just get out there and freaking do something.
And we'll talk about, so at 12, 13 years old when I was transitioning, I really stayed to myself, and that was even post-graduation of high school. Like, I originally, so I was going to a university out in Arizona because I was like, you know what, get out of state, spread my wings, no one's going to know you out there, try something new, and I think when I went out there, I was still dealing with all of that high school in the back of my mind, so part of me didn't want to go out. Like, so at the school, during welcome week, they had a bunch of these things, like, just for freshmen to meet each other, like, just try to find someone within your clique, and I went to one thing maybe, and that was just because I knew someone that was going there, so I was like, and that was something I always will regret about that time I spent in Arizona, was I didn't really try to spread my wings, especially with issues I was going through, and Like she was saying, like we only met about 5 months ago, and that was because a mutual friend of ours, he told me that one night to go, and I was like, nah. But mind you, I'm happy because obviously
Now we have a huge group of friends.
Yeah, and that's definitely something like if you're going through it alone, something alone, just spread your wings because you don't know who you're gonna meet with and it could form an instant friendship like us basically.
100%, and that leads us right into our next topic of leaning on others, and that it's so hard to do things alone, and we're not saying that you can't do it alone, because it's 100% possible that you just persevere and you get through it. But when you're in that alone, that in your headspace of I'm alone, I'll always be alone, it can get really toxic and really sad. And so branching out and doing things, like, you don't have to join groups that you would be uncomfortable with, but like, we are both religious people, and so when we heard about this youth group with other kids our age, it piqued our interest. And like, it's the same thing. I play basketball on certain days with people I don't know. We just all love basketball. And you pick something that you're interested in. It could be art or music or theater or whatever, and you go to an event, and it can be a free event, it can be whatever you want, and you will the probability of you running into somebody is really great. You just have to have that open mindset. Like, yeah. I mean, if you never went that day, we would have never formed that connection. No. I would have never probably talked to you. I might have not even came back. I do thank you, because that day that I went, I was iffy on going to the group.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, I was like, oh, Logan's going to be there. I should just go. I should just go, whatever. Yeah. And so it's definitely, finding people that you can relate to, even in that one subject. It can branch off to, like, Logan and I were just sharing stories before the podcast of our, like, the animals in our lives that we love. Boom, that's another connection. I'm a huge animal lover, and now something that was one thing is now way more than things. And so it's definitely spreading your wings and going out there is going to help you get back up and get back on the saddle of being who you need to be. Because battles are they're gonna, you can have armor on, you can not have armor on, whatever, but whether or not you get knocked down does not matter. No. It's when you're going to decide to get up, and when you're going to get back on the horse and ride into the sunset. Mm-hmm. And that's right. And I just said that to somebody today about a business that I've been launching, that I launched in April, and she was like, I can't believe that you failed and you tried again. And I was like, well, what else am I going to do? Yeah, like, what am I going to do? I'm just going to sit there and sulk? I can't. I got to do what I got to do. And that's a huge thing. So, okay, so you get out of high school, you go to Arizona, you come back from Arizona your sophomore year?
So, after leaving Arizona, I kind of slowed down my education a bit. Transferred to a community college closer to where I originally lived. Took about 3-4 years to get my AA, just because that was during the time of the pandemic, unfortunately. So, went to online learning, and I can attest this from when I went to high school. I had to do high school classes online. I am not an online learner, trust me when I say that. No. So, I slowly had to take classes just because I wasn't a successful student going online. So, I didn't get my AA until the spring of 2022. So, that's about 3-4 years for just 2 years of school. But then, so one of the reasons I kind of wanted to stay in Duluth, and I'll talk about this later because we have kind of a topic about leaning others I'll kind of get into. So back in 2014, sorry, because it's just 10 years, I had gone to encounter to meet with the UMD hockey teams, both the men and women's teams, and this will kind of come up a little later. Kind of formed friendships with them, so I always kind of had a love for UMD in my heart, but unfortunately with my not so great academic performances in high school, they didn't accept me based on my grades, so I was like, I gotta find somewhere else. Luckily, the school in Arizona was a little more lenient on kids with underperforming scores, and then obviously went there, flunked out, came back here, and finally, I was like, I finally, going to UMD, I was like, I gotta take my education more seriously. Like, I gotta focus on this, because unfortunately, with how expensive school is, I didn't want to spend 3-4 years paying 15 grand each year.
Seriously.
And so I was like, and then I ended up, changing. I was like, you know what, I'm going to focus on this. And now that I'm a B plus, A minus honor roll student, thank you. I was like, you know what, I'm getting focused, and fortunately still dealing with some stuff, which we'll get into later. But yeah, I was like trying to focus better on my life.
Good for you.
I think we got a little off topic, but we're going with it.
It's okay. Yeah, I don't mind at all. I was the same thing. I went to graduated high school, and I did really good in high school. I like, did sports and stuff, and my grades were like C's and B's, so whatever. A in gym though, so so I wasn't.
Oh yeah, mind you, that's the only good grade I got.
Yeah, that's pretty much. Hopefully everyone. Actually, my brother failed gym because he would never show up. But if you show up, you're good. Yeah. I decided I didn't know what I wanted to do. My dad was pressuring me so hard on you're gonna go to. He was a master electrician. He went to bachelor's degree in being an electrician, so he was already great. And he was like, what are you going to do with your life? And I was like, don't know. I am 18, fresh out high school's womb. I have no idea what I'm about to do. And he said, well, you're going to go to college. He's like, pick a college and go to it. So I went to River Falls University to be a veterinarian science. And I loved it. The animal science classes were amazing. The other classes were not. It was the same thing. The professors didn't have time for that one-on-one individual learning. And when a subject is hard, if I don't get that help, I'm not gonna I'm just gonna give up. I'm gonna try, but it's not gonna be good. It's just gonna be a bunch of scribbles on a page, basically. And so I was acing all my animal science classes, but then I got my report card back, and my dad was like, oh, you're failing chemistry and genetics and all this. And I just paid $20,000 for you to fail. And so I was, like, defeated, really. And that next year I decided I want to stay in River Falls because I loved it there. It's a beautiful place. But I was going to go to the community college. It's $2,500. Yeah. What the frick? I'm going to just do it.
I always kind of wish I did the community college option first.
Seriously. I could get my AA. I would be good. And so I ended up going to the community college there, living in a trap house, literal trap house, and got in trouble. Went to jail. Spent the night in jail, which was terrible. Called my dad. I was like, I need your help. He's like, nope. You're an adult now, sucker. And I was like, all right, sweet. Paid the consequences of going to jail and decided I was going to come home because this is home. Duluth and Superior area is home, and it's such a beautiful place. And ended up coming here, and I think within the next, year, my dad passed away. Yeah. And that was, the hardest thing I've ever gone through. And it's still hard 5 years later. But I was defeated. I was like, this is a battle I will not win. I quit my jobs, I sold my car, I moved in with my mom. I was just sad all day long, and nobody was really, my mom was being super supportive of me because she knew that I was just really struggling. And I used to bartend way back when I was 18. I got my bartending license. I never got a bartending job, but I got my bartending license because when you're at a party, you're making drinks, everyone says they're good. I was like, I'm going to get my bartending $100. I'm going to get my license. And ended up getting a job offer to bartend at a strip club. And I was like, so this was the first job that after my dad died, I was like, all right, that sounds cool. My dad used to go to strip clubs. He was a drinker. That sounds like fun. And ended up making so much money. Literally, it was crazy. I had so many strippers try to fight me. Because I was just, fully clothed and making more money than them. So I can see their frustration. And my mom kicked me out of the house. She's like, if you're working at a strip club, you cannot live with me. And I was like, I'm making $400 a night. Yeah. I'm staying. I will get a place to live. I'm staying. And I had just started dating Harold, so it was like life was kind of falling together. I was having fun again. Like, it wasn't just going to work. I was having fun. And that is when I slowly started fighting that battle, that sadness battle. And I was like, I can do this. And ended up getting fired from the strip club because I was making too much money. They were like, you need to either tone it down and make less money, or the strippers are going to keep complaining. And I was like, just fire me, because no way. You put money in front of me, I'm not going to work my ass off to get it. And that's kind of when I started being a caregiver. And 4 years later, I'm still doing caregiving stuff because I really enjoy how that makes me feel to just be there to help, kind of. And so it's definitely still a battle, but man, do I feel like a weight off my shoulders, especially at the deliverance that we attended.
Oh, that was...
Watching everybody else just like cry, and like everyone has their own things that they're going through, and we never know what somebody's struggling with. And so to be able to see each other just like break down, it was so enlightening. Just everybody's battles kind of coming to the surface, and it's hard. It's not easy at all. But it's definitely getting to this point. I just spoke with somebody who is very much younger, in high school still, and she's really struggling, and I just kind of gave her some advice, and not like I know better advice, but the advice that I wish somebody would have said to me. Oh, yeah. And she thanked me, and she's like, I can't wait for your other podcast. And I was like, this is what she said, that she watched The Power of Healing, which was last week, and she said it helped me out a lot. And I said, this is what we want these podcasts to do, because everybody's struggling. We all have stuff that we're going through, and it feels like we can't beat it. So now, you're 24, you're still going to UMD?
Yeah, I'll graduate in the spring.
Awesome. That's and you, what the heck?
Yeah.
There you go. That's
even though
incredible.
I don't know what I want to do yet, and I feel like that's kind of a battle someone also fights, because I feel like there's the pressure once you're out of college. You're like,
what are you gonna do?
Yeah, what are you gonna do? And I was actually talking to a friend of mine's parents who I'm very close with, and like I was talking to them, and they were like, oh, what do you want to do? I was like, I have no idea. And they were like, that's fine. I was like, honestly, I'm thinking about taking a break here, maybe go travel somewhere. And they were like, do that instead. You're young, you want to do it while you're young. You don't want to do it when you're old and you get grumpy in the evening and want to be done with it.
Yeah, take a nap in the best part of the night.
Yeah, do it when you're young. And I was like, you know what, I might actually. But yeah, 100%. Graduate in the spring. Don't really know. I might have to move in because my mom's in California, so might have to move back in with my, well, she lived out there. Move back in with my dad, even though he said, you know what, for a year or two, I'll allow you, like, you can move back in, try to, find a job or just work something part-time. But yeah, it's always, I feel like, again, education's one of those battles that even though people might not say they're going through, is going through it because they have that pressure of, oh, what are you going to do yet? So, like, senior year, I'm applying for internships and everything, but still, like, I don't know what I want to do yet.
Yeah, and there's a person in Duluth that owns a company. It's called Lundin Productions.
Okay.
And I was the founder of it is a really good friend of mine. I go to him for a lot of advice, business-wise and stuff, and he's really great. And he asked me, he said, did you graduate college? And I said, no, kind of ashamed. And he's like, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
He's like, you don't have to be ashamed. He's like, I didn't graduate college. Yeah. And I said, what? I said, you run like a crazy, popular, successsull business. And he's like, didn't go to college. Yeah. He's like, my 2 kids went to college, so technically I went to college because they're my kids. But he's like, no, I did not go to college. And he said, I traveled with my band for a year, and it blew up, and we made a lot of money, and it made me feel so good. And I was just like, eventually I do want to go back to school because I do think education is so important, especially like. So what did you decide to, did you major or minor?
So I am majoring with a major in history and minor in political science. Either thinking, I kind of have a few avenues actually that are really hopeful. So it's kind of like I think I want to take a break year to really have a full year without school, without classes.
That pressure.
That pressure, just so have a year working maybe something part-time, so I can really explore these opportunities without the pressure of school in the back of my mind to be able to make that decision.
100%. And traveling is such a good idea.
Oh, yeah.
I still haven't. I've traveled a little bit. We went on family vacations and stuff, and I got a free trip to Hawaii when I was in college, which was awesome. 10 out of 10 recommend going to Hawaii. It was a phenomenal place. Like, literally, spiritually, it's the reason I am who I am.
Oh, yeah.
That's where I decided that I was going to have a rescue, all over the world, and Hawaii was going to be one of those places. And that's what traveling does, though. It gives you a new perspective on something that you're so stuck in. That's what we do. Like, we're human. We get so stuck in our head, and allowing us to get out of our normal routine is so beneficial. And I highly recommend it, for sure. I told Harold and I were talking about, when you're in a relationship, you should always check in with your partner and make sure you have the same goals in mind. And before we got married and before we got serious, he asked me what my goals were, and I said this was in 2020, said within the next 10 years, I want to be traveling full time. I want to live in an RV with my dogs and my cats, and I want to be traveling the world literally full time. And at first he was like, I don't want to do that. I want to, his big thing is he wants to help people. That's why he works in the jail and everything. And his big thing is he wants to help people, and he thought that either becoming a cop or staying in armed security would do that. And now, as the world is, like, so chaotic, before we got married, we reanalyzed our goals. And he's like, what are your goals now? And I said, same thing. I said, I'm going to release Ponder, I'm going to make a bunch of money, and then I'm going to travel the world for however long. Then I'm going to make a giant animal rescue in the United States and live completely off the grid for the rest of my life. And he's like, sounds good. Let's do that. I was like, what about your plan? He's like, your plan sounds much better. Let's do that. I don't want to work my whole life away. And I was like, all right, solid. Let's do that. And that's like, it's just, when I was in high school, I never had that, like, clique. I never had that friend group. Everybody had their, like I played basketball and ran track, but, like, everybody had that one thing that they were really knowledgeable in, they were really good at, and I just never could find it. And little did I know, it was literally in front of my face the entire time. It was just like, now I'm the friend that is called when somebody finds a missing dog, or hey, I found this dog's running up tower, like, can you come help me? And I'm like, yeah, I got treats in my car, I got a leash, come on, let's go. And that is exactly, back in high school, I felt like I would never get there. I would never find my friend group. I would never find my passion. I would never do what I wanted to do. And now, fast forward, I graduated in 2016 from high school, and it's 2024. So fast forward friggin' 8 years, and I'm about to do everything that I've ever dreamed of with such a good support system. I mean, you just can't see into the future.
No, you can't. No.
And I feel like that's really hard for a lot of people, because they want to know, like, I wouldn't want to know my future, because, like, what if I, like, randomly die and get hit by a bus? Like, I don't want to know that and be terrified of buses for the rest of my life. But people want to know, like, am I going to be successful? Am I going to ever find love? And it's like, we're not meant to know. Yeah, because then we'd be waiting for it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's not fair to us. That's not fair to our brains, who overthink every second. And I think that is what actually brought me the closest to religion and to God, was that I would stress out so much about things. And when Harold deep dove into it first, and when I was starting to learn, he's like, you need to let all your stress go. Yeah. And let God take on that stress. Right. And I was like, that's not fair to him. That's not fair to that guy. It's like, that's super stressful. And he's like, no, seriously, when I started doing that, it's automatically, you see the positivity of your life starting to keep going and, like, build, and whatever you believe in, whatever religion you believe in, or if you don't believe in anything, you need to have that escape, that mental break 100%. And so, other than youth group, what else do you do, like, for fun or, like, to get that mental break?
Well, so with one of my medical conditions, it's a head condition. So when I was really young, I loved playing hockey. But unfortunately, when it started getting more physical, my neurosurgeon was like, "Urgh." And he basically like explained to my parents, I can't tell you to tell your kid no. I can't tell your kid no.
Yeah.
But if it was my kid,
I wouldn't let him.
I wouldn't let him. So that's when my parents were like, yeah, you have to stop. And for me, that was very hard because like I said, I live an hour north of here, and north of Duluth, there's not much
There's ice and water.
So growing up, like being in northern Minnesota, hockey's always been a huge thing in northern Minnesota. So it was like,
you grew up in Virginia.
Yeah.
I'm from Virginia.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
No.
That's where I was born. Yeah, that's
okay,
where I was born.
No.
Yeah.
So like growing, like, so once I had to stop, I was like, all right, F it, I'm just gonna watch it religiously. Like, and today, like, if there's like during the week, if I'm off a certain day, if there's even a high school game or a junior hockey game, college game, I don't care what level it is, I'll go just because of my love for hockey. So it's like, so that kind of blends in because when at about 13, 14, my parents had divorced, and at that time I was like really losing my faith, and because I was out of the elementary school and didn't really care about going to church. And after that I was like, you know what, I don't believe, like, that's when I was like, I don't believe in God or anything. So I was like, F this. And luckily for me, like I was saying, dealing with, earlier, I got to meet with the men's and women's hockey team. I started forming a closer friendship with the women's team because they unfortunately don't get a lot of support outside their families. So it's like, you know what, I'll be there for them. And it really, I could tell, really meant a lot because like they loved seeing me there, because outside of their parents there wasn't really a huge network of support for. And so just seeing their excitement made me like, all right, this is kind of gonna be my little niche now. And even after refining my faith, I literally still support them. I go to home games. I go to a decent amount of away games. I'm actually going to the cities this weekend because they face the University of Minnesota. So I'll go down for that. Kind of still my niche, even though like I have that religious lean on now. So it's, I feel like, yeah, it's like, and think, like you were saying, it doesn't have to be art. It, like you were saying, an art club or like whatever. It can be a sport. If you love a sport so much, you can, even if you're down in the dumps. Like I've said, I can be down in the dumps. I go to a hockey game and I feel like I'm on top world just because I'm watching my favorite sport.
We just got free tickets to the UMD hockey game on this past Friday. They're against Denver, and our friend called us and was like, "Hey, I got 3 tickets. My boss just gave them to me. I'm working. Do you guys want to go?" And we were like, and if I would have known you were such a hockey fan, I would have freaking called you. Yeah. And we're looking for our seats. Can't find our seats anywhere. We asked somebody. They were suite tickets.
Oh, wow.
It was like, the owner of the suite was like, order drinks on me. Oh, yeah. Pizza is coming. Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm on freaking top of the world. Oh, yeah. And so I told my mom about it, and my mom's like, oh, well, my company has season tickets if you ever want to go. So now that I know that you're a huge hockey fan, I'll definitely grab some tickets for us. That'd be cool. But yeah, I was born in Virginia. I lived, my parents were split up. So my mom was in Duluth and my dad was in Virginia. Okay. That's where he ran his electrical company, and he was, the Mintac up there.
Oh yeah, my dad's the plant manager at Mintac. I was gonna say I'm actually a family is a history of working on my minds. When my great grandpa came to the States, that was kind of his first job.
Wow.
My grandpa literally worked there till the day he died. And that's like not a joke. I'll explain later after we're done with this. Like, he worked till the day he died.
Oh my gosh.
My dad's been with Mintac / U.S. Steel, which is like the company for. Well, he got out of the Marines in '94, so after that, so just about 30 years.
I bet he knew my dad.
He probably did. I'll have to get his name and just ask him.
He got hired as the head electrical engineer in 2017.
Oh, maybe I have to ask him. See
Yeah,
if he recognizes the name.
I'll send you his name. But that is really, really cool. The mines is a tough job.
It is. It's a tough industry, and that is one thing I especially now today with our political climate, I'm always happy I kind of didn't go into the mines because that was kind of when my grandpa passed when I was young. I was like, carry on the family tradition. But then once I started growing older, I was like,
oh man,
meh.
It's not good for your health. It's dangerous.
No, especially today, I was like, I wouldn't, because my dad's traveling for work. Out of the month, he's probably down in the state capital at least 2 weeks out of the month just because he has to deal with politicians and everything. So it's
trying to shut it down.
Yeah.
That's what it is all the time. And some mining for oil in the ocean, I'm like, oh, frick. Come on. Because then you always hear about oil spills and everything, and they're like, oops, sorry. And it's like, no, just don't do it. But definitely up here, thousands of jobs go into the mines. Have you ever been swimming at Oregon in Gilbert?
Oh, yeah.
A man-made pool.
Yeah,
it's literally the clearest water you'll ever see. We jump off those cliffs all the time, even though you're not supposed to.
Yeah, no.
Self-incriminating myself, but it's fine. But that's super cool.
Gilbert Police, I need your help.
that's the candies and cones.
Yeah.
I worked there for 3 summers doing the candy shop and then wedding decorating.
I'm guessing we probably ran into each other
I'm
and
sure.
just probably
I'm
never...
sure. I spent my whole life going up there. I used nothing stranger than a ranger.
Yeah,
and and if you're not from the range, then you're like, what?
Yeah, you don't get it.
You don't get it.
And and people there's not a different dialect in Minnesota on the Iron Range. Yes, there is.
It is.
Yes.
And it's evolved.
Oh, yeah.
Over the years, it used to be really, really rough, but I feel like over the years it's getting better. I haven't, after my dad passed, we go up on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Our church does a Bible study up there on Wednesdays, and we go when we can. So we're going this Wednesday, but my twin brothers from my dad are up there, and my grandma, and so my family's still up there, and it's just the interactions of people on the range are just it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm actually lucky that I grew up out there because we lived in the country, so that's where I got that not afraid to get your hands dirty type of attitude. And I'm really, I've been around people that are like, oh, you want me to do what?
Yeah, no.
It's get your hand in there. What are you talking about?
Living up north, you weren't scared of getting dirty, especially even if you were a family member of a mine worker.
I'm sure.
Oh yeah, because when I was younger, my dad was the head of a certain department, and he would still come home in his uniforms covered in the iron ore and dust and everything. It was and although it sucked, we were it became normal. And luckily today he has a higher level job, so he's not getting as much dirty or anything.
Good for him.
But yeah, no. But like I was saying, living up on the range, although you love the people around the range, once you get into sports though, that's where it just...
Oh, yeah.
So fighting the battles, Virginia, where I lived, our biggest rival, thank you. Was Evelyn, which was literally not even 10 minutes away. Once you get on the highway, you're there in 5 minutes.
Literally.
And the biggest, of course, being north, the fighting the battles, is hockey. And that when you're even, I remember when I was my last year of playing, I was 6, and I was that's when I grow up, that's the one game I'm always going to be looking for, is the rivalry of the Virginia Evelyn game. But when I stopped, it was still you're part of that town, you're part of that legacy, you're part of that rivalry. And so I remember that every game we had with you had to be there at least 30 minutes early to find a seat, because by game time, it's standing room only. And
it's and it does. My granny, my twin brothers are still in high school, but my granny, they don't play. One of my brothers swims, and the other one didn't want to play this year. He wanted to work. And she'll still go to the games.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of the players will call her Granny, and she's the loudest person in the freaking whole stadium. But they just redid that entire stadium, and it looks really good.
The new. Are you talking about
where the miners?
Oh
was?
yeah, the new arena. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That was definitely the one thing, but I feel like that also made you love the game more because you played it in the same arena that. And for a lot of you who don't know, Evelyn had a history, especially post World War II, of being a hockey school. Like, if you're ever in the old Hippodrome, you can just see banners of their old state championships. And although they're not...
the giant hockey stick, too, they got over
there. Oh, yeah. Hockey's a way of life up north of Duluth. So if you don't play hockey, you're just like...
You don't play hockey or drink, you're not fitting in.
No.
Straight up.
But anyway, so, like, yeah, that was, like, just a high school, the rivalry. So, like, it gave you an out. So, like, for me during high school, like, during the bowling and everything, it gave me an out.
Yeah, it gave you something to look forward to even. And that's... Yeah, I think I don't really have anything, any other things that I want to... like topics. If you hear screaming in the background, my cat is in heat. So if you think you're miserable, you should come sit where we're sitting. But yeah, is there anything else that you want to touch up or revisit or whatever?
Let's see.
We did everything on the board.
Oh yeah, so we did. Well, I guess we also kind of should, because I think the fighting the battles, especially, and I know we mutually got together about this, is the depression, and I know we were kind of talking about before the podcast started about it, and I was like, no, I feel like this is something
that we should talk about.
Yeah, and so I guess I'll go first. And so, like I was saying, I was diagnosed with all my medical issues about 7, 8, and it turned out being genetic. And, of course, 7, 8-year-old kid, you're growing up in the Catholic faith, and you're just taught, oh, pray, you'll get healed and everything. Well, the older you get, the more wise up you kind of, unfortunately, get. And at that, I remember I was 8 years old. I didn't want to kill myself, but 8 years old was the first time I remember I wanted to die. Or not been born, whatever. And at that time, I was like, and then once I got out of the elementary school, I was like, man, I'm not going to church. The only reason I went to church was because my mom made me. Mm-hmm. And like I was saying, got to meet then going in 12, 13, 14, got to meet with the UMD hockey teams, and that became important because the following year my parents divorced, and because my dad was unfaithful to my mom. And at that time, that's when I really lost my faith, and I was just like, no, part of my language, guys, but fuck this. And I was just like, if God so loved everyone, he wouldn't
put me through this.
Yeah, put me through this. And that was definitely hard for me but then besides whenever I wasn't at a hockey game, I was just like down. And so the battle I had to fight 10 years to deal with was battle with addiction. And with all my medical issues, I unfortunately had to go to pills because it was just like an easier thing to get. And that was definitely something I didn't want to deal with. I guess I shouldn't say wanted to deal with, but wanted to use it as an out because, like, I could feel normal just because, like, I've been so used to being in doctors or surgery rooms, so it's like medicine's in you feel normal, weirdly. So I started using, and, like, there'd be times I probably took so much I could have killed someone weighing well over 400 pounds, and I'm obviously still here. And there's two kind of stories I want to briefly mention that I always kind of leaned on, that your faith, like God was there for me without me noticing it. And the first one was, I was about 16, 17 years old. I was dealing with kidney stones. And for whoever's not dealing with kidney stones, you're lucky because
they suck.
They do suck. And
it's like peeing out rocks.
Oh, it is.
Literally.
Yeah. And unfortunately one I was dealing with for about 3 months.
Yeah.
And that, for anyone who doesn't know, that is also very uncommon. Usually they pass within a few weeks. And um and so they were like, you're probably gonna have to go down, you're gonna have to get it surgically removed because it's just not coming out. And so, like, since we were already doctoring down at the Mayo, we were like, all right, we'll just simply go down there. They know us, so should be no problem getting an appointment. And it wasn't, surprisingly, even though we hadn't been in that, like, the urology department. They were like, we know who you are. You're in our system. We can get you in soon. And my mom was like, Logan, I want you to do the anointing of the sick. And for anyone who doesn't know, that is a Catholic sacrament that's usually used for people who are dying or going into something seriously medical, just like as a protection for you, like if you die. Yeah. And I was like, no, I don't want to do this. And my mom was nagging on me, and I was like, literally the day before we were leaving for the Mayo, I was like, no, it's fine. If it'll make her I didn't say this, but if it'll make her shut up, I'll do it. And went through it. Next morning we kind of woke up late. We were having to rush down to the Mayo to catch our appointment in time. And I was like, all right, I gotta go to the bathroom. And so I went to the bathroom. Didn't have my strainer on me because I thought 3 months it's not gonna come out, and it came out. And I wasn't able to catch it because, unfortunately, at the time, the Mayo had switched to the, like, sensor flusher. So by the time I thought about it, I was like, it already went. And it's funny because my mom was like, you look like a ghost. And I was like, it just came out. And she was like, what? I was like, my kidney stone. She was like, did you catch it? I was like, I wasn't able to. It, like, just flushed. And so the surgeons were like, well, not having surgery, I guess.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and the next story I kind of want to share is, it actually occurred, it would have been the following year, actually. My mom was at a Kenny Rogers concert because even today, even though he's dead, she
loves him.
Loves Kenny Rogers. And he was playing down in Hinckley. He was at the casino. And so I was home alone, and I don't even remember what the day I was so down about, but I was like, and normally when I was suicidal, I would do more medicines just so I wouldn't have a physical, like, showing of how I died. And this night I was like, you know, and I was planning on just slicing him up. I was like, I'm just going to cut myself up until I'm dead. And just as I was about to, and God, I don't know why I had my phone on me, but I got a ding and, like, a notification. Yeah, and it was a friend from the women's hockey team who I graduated years before, and I hadn't talked to in years. And she was like, hey, Logan, how are you doing? And I was like, okay. And she was like, no, you're not. She was like, no, you're not. I can tell you're not. I was like, how can you? Just because he said okay. And we ended up talking for about, and obviously she's heard this story because I've said it a lot, talked for about 6-7 hours that night. The one thing I haven't mentioned to you about that, because I kind of forgot about this, but her and her family were planning on going camping that weekend. She postponed till the next morning. She told her family, go, I need to take care of something. And she didn't tell them what, but she said, I'm not leaving him. I'm not making sure he did anything stupid. So that was kind of like, and then coming back, going to UMD, kind of fast forward a few years, going through a lot of issues and fighting the battle, and I was like, part of me didn't want to go to school, but it was like, just get my dad off my back. And so I was like, I'm just going to go through the motions, get it over with, and you know what, I don't care what I do, don't care if I die, don't care. And so it was welcome week, and I was just walking around, and I remember there was this kickball, like, little event going on. I was like, all right, F it, I'll check it out. And it was funny because I didn't even know what group was sponsoring it, but it ended up being a Christian, like, group. And because a week later, there's like, hey, Logan, I'm with Crew, the name of the group, and could we meet? And I was like, all right, F it. I was like, at this time, I had not refound my faith, and I had no intention to, but I was like, you know what, just to be nice, I'll say yes, and I'll listen. And kind of went through the motions, and that New Year's Eve, it would have been the New Year's Eve of like 22, 23, we were at a conference down in the cities, and remember we were kind of worshiping, we were kind of singing. Mind you, I felt like I wasn't really going through it, and now, I don't know any of you who's religious, but if you ever feel a warm feeling and everyone says that's like your faith come back into, that's what I felt, because like I could feel like something coming into me, and and then at that moment, and my friend could attest this if you ever meet him, like I just started bawling. Like I remember I was crying for a good 10 minutes straight, and because like although like I knew I was seeing what was going on currently, I had that flashback of everything in my life that happened, and I could just hear like this was for a reason, this was for a reason, this was for a reason.
It's like an overwhelming feeling of love.
Yeah.
Is what I would describe
yeah.
it as 100%.
No, yeah. And I kind of cried because I realized, yes, I'd gone basically through hell, but it was for a reason. And that's when I kind of cleaned up my life, finally was trying to say, all right, I'll control my drug, like try to fight this drug addiction. Wanted to do it on my own because I didn't want my family to know about this. And so about a year had passed, and I was fighting the addiction. I was going through it, but I still felt like I was missing a niche, like something. And I remember it was just this past October, and I remember Simon I had seen for guy. Yeah, I know.
I love that guy.
I had seen for like the last couple weeks him and Harmony on their like social media saying, "Oh, the gathering, the young adults." I was like, "What the is this about?" And I remember one night I was coming back from a movie, and I remember that night was probably the worst mental wise I'd gone through in a long time, and I was just like, "Hey, dude, what's this about?" And he's like, "Oh, dude, you should come. It's like a bunch of young adults. Like God's moving through everyone." And I was like, like at that time I'd already found my faith, but I was like, part of me still kind of had that iffy hesitation. And no, I was like, all right, I'll go. I'll try it out. And mind you, that night I was dealing through so much mental issues. I was like, if this isn't what I can do, it's who knows how much longer I can deal with this. And well, got through the night. We were heading upstairs, kind of worship. I ended up sitting next to Harold and Peyton, and then introduced myself. So mind you, we had not known each other for more than 5 minutes.
Literally.
And so we were kind of singing and worshiping, and Natalie, who's obviously Dan's wife, was talking about like
the wife of the pastor. Yeah.
Yeah. Was talking about suicide, like that, and I remember I was bawling as much as I had when I refound my faith. And I remember I kind of went to the row behind us because I just wanted to sit out of the way and start crying. And all of a, like, mind you, I was crying, and then all of a sudden I feel a hand on my back, and I'm like, okay, someone's consoling me. I'm not going to really pay attention. And so it took me a minute or two to, like, catch myself, like, kind of get my composure, and I look up, and lo and behold, who is it? And mind you, like, that's when I was in shock because, like I said, we had not really known each other for 5 minutes, and I was like, she's not doing this. And I was like, wow. And I was like, can I just give you a hug? Thank you. And she's like, oh yeah, of course. And obviously, and so, like, we kind of said, oh, here's my, like, because social media, just so we can stay in touch. And like, we had started growing close, and then, like, the next day, I was telling her, thank you, and she was like, I would do it again, and obviously I won't say why unless she wants to say it next, and I was just like, wow. And so I knew I at least found other people I could lean back to besides my hockey friends, but the one piece that I feel like I was still missing, and we mentioned it about earlier, I had never previously believed in deliverance ministry. I was like, this is fake. It's in people's head. God, that was wrong. So that night I was like, I don't really go to it. I'll listen to them, but probably nothing else. And I remember feeling so much change. I didn't even know what was going on, because that next morning. Now, mind you, during that that past year, I had not uh, like bent in, like not. I'm trying to find the right word. Like or gone back into my addictions, like using it, but I was like still had that temptation. And I remember the next morning I had not one temptation for drugs, not one temptation for alcohol, and I remember texting like Dan that morning. I was like, dude, I'm waking up and like I don't have.
I feel different.
Yeah, I like don't have any temptation, and that's still today. Like we're just about a month in since that happened, and it was like I don't have any temptation for any of this.
Yeah, it was, that experience was, and for Harold and I, the whole experience was insane, because it's just not something that happens in today's age. And so, we went there and we felt that deliverance, and I was a part of it, and Harold was a part of it, and we all, felt this energy. And then it was so conflicting because the next week, we were really struck, about the whole thing, and we wanted to do some research on it. And the Bible says that those miracles and that deliverance, it doesn't happen anymore.
No.
It only happened because, and like speaking tongues that were around. Speaking tongues only happened, and God gave that power to people speaking tongues so they could, go and spread the religion to people that couldn't understand their language. And that's why people say, oh, well, tongues sounds like gibberish because it's me talking to God, but that's what prayer is for. You pray to talk to God. There's no need for those random words or whatever. So it was really conflicting, because I felt some sort of power during that deliverance. I mean, the grief that I feel from losing my dad I've held for so long, it felt like it was like lifted. That's literally, and so it was so conflicting having, our ministry be like, deliverance is not a thing. It's more of like a false prophecy type deal, and and it can be scary, and that was really hard, and it's really confusing. Religion is confusing.
It is
altogether.
Even for people who are, you could ask Josiah, who's a mutual good friend of ours, and he's a very religious person, and I guarantee you could ask him, and he could say it's so confusing.
Exactly, and it's just like going back to how we met is, and I told you this, and I don't talk about it a lot because I'll say my dad passed, but I'll never
say why or how.
I'll never say why or how because it's just like so emotional and it's really hard. And when Natalie came up and said, and it was crazy that she even said this, which is nuts. She's just like, I was driving today and God came into my head and said, you need to talk about suicidal thoughts and tendencies today. And she did it. And for me, it was extremely emotional. But then when I do have a habit of when somebody, if I'm alone, I'll be emotional. Like and Harold knows this. I'm an extremely emotional person. But like, I don't let people see it.
Yeah. Because
I'd rather be somebody's anchor than something that's like, or somebody's, weight off their shoulders and that what's weighing them down. And so when Logan moved to the other seat behind us and started crying, it was not even like, it wasn't even a thought in my head. I jumped over the seat and I just like, when you're in that, I just know that when you're in that process of like absolutely breaking down, just to have somebody's freaking hand on your back or like whatever, that love in that sharing is so important. And like I said, we literally met 5 minutes before this happened.
And it was a simple handshake, hello, and that was it.
That was it. And it was it. And I sat there and I rubbed him on the back, and as he cried and he said, "Can I give you a hug?" And I was like, "Of course." And then the next day we were talking, he's like, "Thank you so much." And I said, "I would do it again because my dad passed away from suicide. And so I know that if I could if I could ever talk to him again and like stop him from doing it, I would do it 100 times over." And a lot of people will say, "Oh, life will be so much better without me," and it's just not true.
No.
It's not. And it's, I've had friends in my past and they've joked about suicide or they'll say it serious, but they'll not it's not something that they actually have dealt with, and they just saying it because they want that certain spotlight on for a second, and it triggers me, and I'm like, don't say that, because if you're gonna say it, I'm gonna take it seriously, and I'm gonna get you help, or I'm gonna monitor you, or like it's something that is so scary.
Yeah, the reason, and like thinking about that, like there's this one kid I knew, so I won't say the name or anything just for privacy, like give his family's privacy. I know no one probably won't hear the name, but I still want to protect his privacy. He was a tall kid. He was 6'6", a little over 300 pounds. He had a full ride scholarship to University of South Dakota to play football for their program, and literally less than a week later, I see all this info like, oh, rest in peace, you know, what's his name, and I'm like, what's going on? And my mom asked one of her friends if she heard anything, and she basically said what he did was went to his room, locked the door, put a gun right to it. No, it wasn't even a gun, it was a shotgun to his chest, and mind you, this, and I remember seeing him the week before, and it was like, he was happy, because yes, he was going to a smaller Division I school, but he basically could have it, and with how big he was, pro teams probably could see that and be like, get this kid, and a week later he just puts a shot. And like, part of me wishes I would have known, like, not even known he was dealing with so much stuff, but like, he didn't look like he was going through all that, like literally that, and like, it's part of me that's like me and him were close, but I was like, I just wish he was going through something, be like, hey dude, I know we've had our issues in the past, but you don't need to even be thinking about doing this. And that's one thing I'll always wish that I knew he was going through, because it was like, yes, we, like, when I mean we did not get along, we didn't hate each other, but we just didn't like each other. And yeah, week later I see all this stuff, I'm like, what's going on? My mom finds out, I'm like, damn, because he was supposed to go to the school to report for training camp like 2 days before that. I'm like, dude, he had his life.
And it's that one split, thought, that one split second that was like, you can't do this, and it takes over, and we'll start to sign off here, but that's one of my biggest things now as a human, and since we've gone through so much, is you can never judge a book by its cover.
No, you can't. You
never know what someone's going through. You never know what they've been through. You don't know what they're gonna go through. Yeah. And it's just like, if you can be, and that is why the entire reason that I started this podcast, because I have my Twitch, I stream, which you've said hi millions of times. I stream, and that's just for like fun and games, and then I have a positive online presence with like TikTok and Instagram and whatever, but like, this YouTube is made so that people that are going through these issues, they have somewhere to come, and that world changer mentality is going to be in their heart. And that's all I can do. I can't change the world alone, so I'm recruiting a bajillion people in the world that will want to change the world with me, and then together, I mean, just by us meeting that 5 seconds, and then now it's been 5 months, and it's just like, it's so important that when you were in a time of need, that somebody saw you. Yeah. And that's what we're here for. We're here as world changers. Right. That's what we're supposed to do. I'm like, I just told the girl that I was talking to the other day, and I was like, you're so young. And I was like, I know. It's so annoying hearing that you're so young. Yeah. But you're so young. You really don't know what is going to happen in your future. So giving up is just not an option.
No, it isn't, because that's something I don't know if what he, like, when he did it, thought of. Like, he didn't look at the future, because he probably just thought, oh, I'm not going to have anything. Like, dude, you had a full ride scholarship to a huge football school. You probably had a future in football, even if it might have only been for a few years. It could have at least set you up to get you started on life and everything.
It's like, you never know what your life. If I would have looked at my life as a freshman or a sophomore in high school when I was like the peak of getting bullied,
Oh, yeah.
I would have been like, yeah, count me out, sign me off, get me out of here. But now as a 25-year-old and moving up in the world, it's like, thank God.
Yeah, no.
I never decided to, and I've never, growing up for me, I never dealt with, I wasn't necessarily depressed. I was more negative.
Mm-hmm.
I was really, really negative. Like, my mom and dad, they were split up. They were fighting. It was a lot of stress. And I was really negative about life. And then when I started becoming my own person, I was like, why am I such a bummer?
Yeah.
Like, I am such a happy person that this is who I need to be all the time. And that, I'm so glad that I grew into the person that have always wanted to be.
Yeah.
And that's just like, that's the entire integrity of growing up and finding who you are, finding your passion, finding what you want to do, because it's not going to come to you overnight.
No.
And one day it might come to you overnight. You might be on vacation somewhere and you're like, you know what, I'm going to friggin' change the world.
Yeah.
And this is how I'm going to do it. Or sometimes it's like, maybe I'll try this and maybe I'll try that. But the fact that we're trying is gold. Yeah. I think today's podcast, I can't wait to edit it once you leave, because I post them later on Monday nights, but I think this podcast was so enlightening and is going to help so many people that are just seriously struggling with this ongoing battle, and I don't think I have anything else. We're good. Yeah. We're running a little long. This might be the second. This might be actually the longest one compared.
I was just looking at my phone. It's a little past 6, and we started
at 5.
A little before 5.
4:55. So yes, definitely. So Logan, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
I definitely once we start going further and further, I'm gonna have reruns. I definitely want to do in the future. I want to do an episode on addiction.
Oh yeah.
Centered around it, because my father was a high functioning alcoholic, and it's really detrimental for a lot of people that go through any sort of addiction.
It is.
And so it's really important that we're doing these type of topics. I had somebody say, you should really do topics that are gonna make you go viral. And I said, I want to do topics that are going to mean something to somebody watching.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of lean back to, like, when I was talking about work earlier, I always feel like it's more important. See, I've heard this, so you've probably heard it too. If you love what you do for a living, you never work a day in your life. Yeah. So that's why I would agree with you that you want to do more topics that are going to be important to you, important to change stuff, rather than just, like, we could have spent the last hour talking about politics, even though we might have not given two shits about it. And it's like, you do the topics that are more important to you.
Because you know what? It's not about the fame. It's not about the money. Yeah. It's about reaching people like you that are watching right now, that have been in that have been in our shoes, and you want to, there's those shoes that you feel like you're stuck in, that they're bolted to the floor. But us, we're here for you to get you into a new pair of running shoes, because we're off. So we're going to sign off, and I'm sure both of us have to use the bathroom. We'll be sitting for quite a long time. But thank you guys so much. We will have a new episode next week, and we will definitely love to welcome Logan back. You'll definitely see him again, I'm sure. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week.
Bye, guys.
All right. My foot's asleep.
Ugh.